If I
So
could just add there, Kirby,
yeah,
I always say that the secret to succeeding in business is in the first two letters of business. First two letters of business is BU, and that
I like that.
it screams at us like, hey.
Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hassman, and joining me today is a brand new rock star. Super excited to dive in today. He's an international keynote speaker, a private advisor, helping leaders build cultures that feel alive. He's also been known as Human Caffeine. Daniel Lewis, thanks for joining me.
I always get that chuckle out of the human caffeine part, but thanks so much for having me, Kirby.
Yeah, man. We were introduced by a mutual acquaintance, mutual friend, Danny Rosen. And so he said that we needed to chat. So I appreciate you taking the time, man.
Happy to
So
be here.
yeah, you are known as Human Caffeine. Obviously that's a chuckle, but it's also something that you do, right? So where
Yeah.
does that energy come from and how do you sustain it over the long term? Because a lot of us get it in the short bursts, but
Yeah.
how do you maintain it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's a name that I have made not just a name for myself, but a mission for myself. And so I'll preface by saying human caffeine does not mean I am 24/7 high octane, high energy, always positive Ronald McDonald. That is not the case. Human caffeine does mean, though, that I like to bring good energy and high energy into everything that I set out to do. And I think where that comes from, without getting into the gory details too much, um, in my younger life, I was I say younger life, but in my teens, I was in the music industry and I was always on the stage, always performing, going through the life of a music artist. I did go through a bit of a near tragic incident in my music days where I was the victim of a nearly fatal stabbing and stabbed a few times, nearly fatal. It was a dark moment in my life. And so, fast forward, coming out of that situation, I took on a whole new lease on life and what it means to be alive, be present. If someone's talking to me, who are you? How did our paths cross? And that is what set the tone for being energized and always being and feeling alive. So I know I hopped over a lot of details, but the human caffeine really comes from this is life, this is now, let's live it, let's do it.
Yeah, I love that sort of living in the present. I think so many of us have our whole lives either we're spent worrying about yesterday or freaking out about tomorrow, and we don't spend enough time in that moment. So I love that. The other thing I kind of learned about you is you work with high performing teams and
Yes.
leaders. In your experience, what separates people who perform at that high level from those who struggle to gain traction?
Yeah, absolutely. What I love about that question, Kirby, is it gives me an opportunity to share what I've learned in working with a lot of high performing leaders. And you would think maybe it's the credentials, maybe it's the experience. They've been in the industry a long time. Maybe they're super good at numbers. It's none of those things. I find that it's likability and authenticity. The people who show up real, whatever real means, the people who are authentic are the people who are great connectors. And that genuine way that they present themselves allows people to feel at ease and then perform high as well. And so, yes, maybe compiled on top of all of those things like the credentials and the education and all that stuff is great. But when you just decide in the morning that I'm going to be, I like to call the sandbox me, the traits and characteristics that you had when you were 5, 6, 7 that your parents would tell you about, the leaders who bring that to the table and find ways to infuse it into their profession, career, job, organization, they tend to bring in the results and perform at a high level and inspire people in the process to do the same.
Man, I think that's great advice because and it's funny because I was literally having this conversation earlier today with my daughter who works on our team, and we found that just like content, for example, so many people are trying to edit everything and polish everything and make it's like
Yes.
the highest performing content is when she's just being herself and being
Wow.
silly and having fun. Yeah, and so I think it's one of those things we hear a lot, but I don't think it can be said too much because it's like we
You're right.
we always want to move toward normal, what we
Yeah.
think is normal, right? And that takes like the uniqueness away from ourselves. So I think that's really interesting.
If I
So
could just add there, Kirby,
yeah,
I always say that the secret to succeeding in business is in the first two letters of business. The first two letters of business is BU. That that it screams at us like, hey, show
yeah,
up. When I was starting my business and I wasn't being myself and I was trying to be a business guy, I saw no results. I was easy to ignore, easy to miss. The moment I switched it, started being real, showing up real at meetings, having meetings in my kids' room because I want to be here, everything changed.
that's great. That's such great advice, Daniel. I appreciate that. So, and obviously, we're talking about energy and building cultures that feel alive, but not everybody's there. So, if someone's listening and they feel burned out or stuck in a rut, in your experience, what's the first step in rebuilding energy and momentum?
Absolutely. So I like to create frameworks because I'm always training and facilitating. So I naturally, and then maybe going back to the music days, words, I love using words. And so I created a simple framework called, so I always talk about the power of personality, the pop, right? And how everybody should use their own pop. But people are like, okay, Daniel, that sounds great. You're doing it. But how do I do it starting tomorrow? And for that, I say pop star. The way to find the power of your personality is to follow this simple framework. Star stands for the S is self reflection. It's that little conversation with yourself that says, what makes me feel great? When I'm doing a lot of this, I feel great. And what makes me not feel great? Just a simple internal conversation. What makes me feel energized? What drains me? After you've had that self talk, stop talking to yourself. Now you want to talk to others. That's the T in STAR. Talk to others and ask your trusted network, your daughter, your friend, your spouse, how would you categorize me? Am I that person who's always singing in the shower or whatever it is? Talk to others and get that external, not validation, but just analyzation of who you
Yeah,
are. And after that, you go to the A, and that is adventure. Too many times we grow in our professional lives and our personal lives, we don't put our personality in rooms and situations that cause us to explore parts of us that we don't know. People will say, I don't like public speaking, so they never public speak. They never lead the meeting on Zoom. And it's in those times of adventure when our personality is put in different places that we learn who we are and how we adapt. So I always say, find a way to adventure. To the point, Kirby, where I actually say literally adventure. Me and my wife went to Iceland 2 years ago just to explore and see culture, people, and whatever. And then
love
the
it.
last part is the R, recapture. Take something, anything, small or big, from the sandbox days when you were 4, 5, 6 years old and infuse it into your work today. A simple way I do it, every email I've written for the last 14 years starts with the day. So today is Tuesday, terrific Tuesday to you. Wonderful Wednesday to you. Tremendous Thursday to you. Super small, but helps us stand out in a world of sameness.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, I've gotten those emails, so I know that
Yeah.
you do that. Like
Okay, so
100%.
validate it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're crushing it. No, I love acronyms and frameworks. So well
Yeah.
done by you. I love that.
Thanks.
So, everyone wants, this is a final question for you. This has been so fun. Everyone
Sure.
wants a high performance culture, but what's like one thing leaders can do today to elevate culture on their own team?
Great question. I like to say if you are a leader, you are a leading organization, your people might be feeling burnt out, disconnected. You want them to show up 100. Start. This is what my suggestion would be. Start with the people. Start with real, honest conversations with your people. Get to know them. Not how's the weather, not what's the KPI, how's the work looking. Get to know them for real. I had a staff member named Sabrina. She plays the guitar. Tell me about that. Because people light up for the things that they light up for. We as leaders sometimes just don't care enough to find out what that is. So start with your people. When they start showing up and they start feeling better about themselves and that empowerment, then you move to the purpose. Are the people around me in my organization aligned with where we're going and why? Not what we do, but why we do what we do. And a simple way to kind of bring that to the forefront at a meeting or an offsite is to do what I like to call the 5 whys. Just ask why 5 times. You ask, why are you doing this? They're going to give you the surface answer. You say, but why? And so on and so forth. You'll find by the fifth why, purpose. Once people find purpose, they become alive. And lastly, play. People, purpose, and play. Play does not mean play games in the workplace. Play means find the pulse of your organization, the energy, the alive, whatever makes your team feel alive. And yes, sometimes it's off sites and team meetings, but sometimes it's really just finding ways to make people feel better about the place they work, the world they live in, and who they are. So people, purpose, play is a great way to stimulate that culture.
I love that. And starting with people is something that when I'm at my best as a leader, I do that. But sometimes I'm so focused on the purpose or the outcome, or as you said, it's like, it's not that I just haven't been intentional. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
a place where I can definitely improve. So I appreciate that. Daniel, this has been amazing. Where can people learn more about you, find more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for your time. It's a blast just throwing things back and forth. I love that. You could find me at iamdaniel.ca. From there, you'll get, link to my blog, what I'm doing, highlight videos, and then find my social media from there. So iamdaniel.ca, or you could join me on LinkedIn, Daniel Lewis, not Daniel Day Lewis. I wish, right? Yeah, you can always find me on those platforms.
That's awesome. This has been so much fun. We will have to do it again sometime, okay?
Absolutely. Love that.
Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.